Okay.
Blue Springs, so it's all the way down just past.
Okay. That's awesome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, candidates. On behalf of the Blue Springs Chamber of Commerce and the Examiner, we welcome you to this candidate forum. I am Cody Rydell, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Blue Springs, and we are pleased and honored to have the candidates with us today, as well as each of you. I want to express our deep gratitude to Central Jackson County Fire District for hosting the event this evening. When you came in, you may have noticed a table in the hallway with candidate literature. The table is provided for candidates to place political materials. Candidates may hand out more material after the event is over. Over the past few weeks, the Blue Springs Chamber of Commerce has asked members to pose questions of the candidates. We received a good number of questions that you guys will hear tonight. Also, we want to hear from you here today. We put note cards on the desk to allow you to pose a question for the candidates. After you write your question, please just pass them to the end of the aisle and we'll collect them. Questions should be posed to all candidates, not an individual candidate. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this afternoon, Mr. Jeff Fox, the Examiner.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeff Fox. I'm the editor of the Examiner. It's good to be here today. Before we hear from the candidates, I will outline the format for this afternoon's forum. We ask that no video, including Facebook Live, be taken during the event. We are videotaping the event today, thanks to the technology available here at the CJC Training Center. The video of today's forum will be uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube channel, hopefully by tomorrow evening. As Cody said, this event is co-sponsored by the Blue Springs Chamber and by the Examiner. The reason we sponsor this event is so that Chamber members and Examiner readers can make informed decisions at the ballot box. We ask that everyone be respectful of others in speech and behavior today so that each candidate can provide information about himself or herself and answer the questions that are asked. There are 3 areas on the April 4th ballot. That's just in a couple of weeks, so get your calendar marked. 3 issues that we will visit today. There are 3 open school board seats in Blue Springs. There are 3 city council seats in Blue Springs, and Blue Springs residents will vote to add or not add a 3% tax on the purchase of recreational marijuana. There are 3 candidates running for the 3 open spots on the Blue Springs Board of Education. We have all of them here today. Could those folks come on up and have a seat now? And I'm going to hand you microphones as you pass by. One for you. Thank you. And one for you. And you get the Good. We also have, there are 5 candidates running for the 3 seats on the city council, and 4 of those people were able to be here this evening. But let's jump back to the Board of Education. We'll come back to the city council race in the second half of our forum today. We're going to hear from the school board candidates, and then the city council candidates after that, and then there'll be a brief, quick chat about the recreational marijuana tax. At this time, I'd like to have the 3 school board candidates get ready to introduce themselves. We have 3 candidates, 3 open spots, so there will be no school board names on the ballot when you go to vote on Tuesday next month. However, we did not want to miss a chance for you to get to know your elected officials, and they all agreed to be here this evening. We've asked each of the 3 to introduce themselves, and then we'll have one question for each of them. So let's start with Jeff Seam. Sir, I get your name wrong. How many times have we done this?
Plenty.
How many times have I gotten it wrong?
Most.
Okay. So I look at it and I say, well, that should be Seams. Is that close?
Right.
Well, there we go. There we go.
It seems that it might be good.
It seems that we're getting toward an answer. So I'm just going to call you Jeff.
That works great.
Would you please introduce yourself by telling us a little bit about yourself and how long you have been on the school board?
As you said, my name is Jeff Seams. And I currently am finishing up my first term as a member of the Blue Springs Board of Education. I currently serve as the fiscal vice president, and it's been a great honor to go through the last 3 years serving our district and our community. Obviously, it was a very challenging 3 years going through COVID, but I'm proud to say I'm a part of it, and what our district's accomplished over these last 3 years. They've been able to maintain their #1 ranking in Metro Kansas City, even through COVID. Our students, we put our students first. Dr. Bob Jerome's leadership has been a great success with him in the district. Personally, I own Blue Springs Marine here in town. I also am on the board of directors for Opportunity Animal Rescue, so we do a lot of animal welfare projects within the city of Blue Springs.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Seams.
Thank you.
Now, the question we have to use is about what happens in Jefferson City. As a school board member, I know that you are carefully watching proposed legislation and how it would affect the Blue Springs School District. Can you tell us what things you're watching for this year? For example, open enrollment, and how that proposed legislation might affect us here at Blue Springs.
Open enrollment, it seems fairly simplistic and, in concept, being able to choose where your students go to school. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. If we open up all of our borders to allow anybody and everyone to come into our district, it really changes the dynamics of our district. For instance, we have districts, right west of us that are going to a 4-day school week. You might find that a lot of students from there want to come to Blue Springs. One of the biggest challenges is the money doesn't follow the student. So we would be allowing students to come into our district but not get the funding to actually cover these students. That's one of the biggest challenges for us. The next problem is, let's say you invite all these students come in. They spend a couple of years in our district. We add teachers, we add facilities, we add infrastructure to support all these students, even though we aren't receiving the funding to go with it. So now, a couple of years from now, the students leave. Now we are overstaffed, over facilities, and so now we have to start laying off teachers, we have to start abandoning facilities. That creates a big problem financially for the district. The current bills that are in Jeff City are allowing the districts to opt out. Again, it seems good in theory, we don't have to participate if we don't choose to. Our concern is this big, massive open enrollment bill passes, it gives you the option to not participate, but a year or two down the road, they could easily tuck into another education bill that mandates us doing it. And so that's our other concern is, being forced to do something that we don't have any control over in the potential future. So our Board of Education has been very adamant about our being against the open enrollment bills that have been coming through that.
All right, thank you, Joe. And I should pause and note that the able John Burke has the hardest job here tonight. There we go. That's John. So if you hear from John, we're all in trouble. He's going to be keeping time and trying to keep everybody, candidates, others, moderators, others in line. All right, let's move on to Rebecca Swank. You, Rebecca, will be new to the school board this year. Can you please introduce yourself to the group and maybe tell us what made you decide to run?
Sure. Hello, I am Rebecca Swank. I am a parent of 2 elementary school-age children in the Blue Springs School District. I am the daughter of an educator from the Blue Springs School District and a graduate of the Blue Springs School District. When my husband and I started our family, we moved back to Blue Springs specifically for this school district. We know that this district is an anomaly, that the opportunities for learning for our children are not found everywhere. And so we're really proud to come back to Blue Springs and make this our home. Professionally, I am the Director of Community Engagement at Job One. Job One is a nonprofit that creates meaningful days for adults with disabilities, primarily with workforce development. And I believe by combining my personal experiences and my professional experiences, I will be able to support our students, the educators, the staff in a way that makes Blue Springs super special.
Very good, thank you. We've got 2 questions to throw at you for deal with them as
Because I'm the newbie.
We're kind of, yeah, no, we're always gonna pick on the news kids. We have two questions in there about things that have been in the news lately. The first question is about the Parents' Bill of Rights. What is that? How does it apply to Blue Springs, if at all? And the second is about, as mentioned a little while ago, about the Independent School District's recent decision to go to a 4-day school week at the beginning of next school year. Is that something that Blue Springs would consider, and what thoughts generally do you have about those two issues?
Yeah, thank you for that question, or questions. First off, I'm against both, and I'll tell you why for those two reasons. Well, first, the 4-day school week, I can't see how it could benefit the student. If there was data that showed me that there was a positive educational outcome for these students, I would consider it and I would look at it, but I don't see that happening. And then I think as a parent, the parental guilt that would come from sending my student for 4 days a week and then having one day of them either doing prime time on their own or me, because I'm a working adult, and so trying to figure out what are they doing on that day by themselves, and really just feel like as a personal, I would have so much guilt over that. The second piece, when you talked about the Parent Bill of Rights, Blue Springs School District already does this. Anybody can pick up the phone and say, what is the curriculum that you're teaching my student? And then you can look at that, you can have that conversation, you can have those, you can make amendments if you don't agree for whatever reason, the book that might be taught in English or something of that nature, you can edit that and you can make that modification for your student. The bill would create unnecessary time and money for our district. So that bill would mean that we have to create some sort of a software or tracking system to share everything that is being taught, and then we have to have the resources to have somebody to administer that. And those are all dollars that could go back to the school, to the student, to the educator, to a salary, something that would better support our students. And when all it has to be is a phone call, an email, a text to the educator to say, what is it that we're teaching and how can we support that student?
Thank you, Rebecca. Kay Cohen, you are next. Would you introduce yourself to those who may not already know you? You've been on the board for some time now, and let everyone know how long you've served and why you're still going at it.
Yes, my name is Kay Cohen. I'm a former educator. I have been on the board since 2011, which is when my husband died. He was on the board from 1998 or 9 till that year when he had a heart attack and died. And the board asked me to finish his first term. So I did that, and I found that I enjoyed working with the people I was working with, working for the students, and hoping to make a difference on the school district. As I said, I'm a former educator. I was a high school librarian for 30 years, 27 of them spent in Blue Springs itself. So I'm a little interested in all the questioning of the contents of libraries at this point. And that's one of the reasons why I want to kind of stay around to see, because we have procedures. If there's questions on any book that's used in our district or in our libraries, we have procedures in hand for people to request an evaluation of the book. And most librarians have some guidelines with which they have to use to select books in the library. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running again this time. And I just enjoy working with kids. It makes me feel good to be able to help out children, since I've been doing it for close to 50 years now, because I started in this district in 1970. And what I enjoyed most, we celebrated School Board Appreciation Month this last Monday. And one of the items that we were given is this little book here. And this was from Blue Springs High School, and it lists or shows the progression of Blue Springs High School from the first building that was built in 1970 and through the different phases of the production of it. And I really appreciate it, because this is my life in Blue Springs. This is what this chronicles, and I really enjoy having that. That said, how about, if you all have questions later on, I will be around here and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I guess I served since 11.
Since
I
11,
said
okay,
that
very
right.
good. And I do have a follow-up question, and I'm gonna roll a second question, because we got one from the floor, so I'm gonna give you, we got a minute here to walk through these things. So, the first question is this, of those seated here today, Kay, you were the one with the most experience on the board. Can you tell us what you think are the biggest challenges facing the district right now, and how are we dealing with them? And then more specifically, we have a question from the floor about your perspective, or all of your perspective on school choice, the private school vouchers legislation that's in Jefferson City right now. What are your thoughts on them?
Okay.
One narrow issue, one broad issue.
Okay. Well, as for the challenges that are facing us, it's the changing playing field, if I may use that analogy. Every year, we get new rules that we have to abide by. The legislature produces some of these new rules. DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, sometimes produces new rules, as in this MSIP 6 that we're working with now is looking at our schools from a different perspective. They're looking at progress. Before, they looked how many of our students are in the upper rankings of their requests for things. Now they're saying, okay, how many of your kids are progressing up that hierarchy? And the thing of it is, when you have a school district that's already producing mostly high-rated students, your progression is not going to be that good, which is going to lower our picture that they produce for us, because you can take lower producing students and work with them and make great progression with that. When you've got high ranking students, it's a little hard for you to go much higher on that. So I see that as one of our challenges. And again, it's the playing field. The legislature is reducing our revenue streams. They're not going to have general revenue to handle things once this large surplus that they now have because of COVID is gone. If they're changing taxes and things of this sort, where's the money going to come from to take care of our criminal justice system, our social services, our schools? As a matter of fact, the second requirement in the Constitution for support is public schools. They're required first to pay their debts, and then they're required to support public schools. How are they going to do that if there's no revenue there to support public schools? The second question on vouchers. Okay, there's another loss of financial support for public schools. If we're going to take taxpayers' money and send it to the charter schools, the private schools, then the revenue source that we've been using in the past is going to be lessened. And so I'm not in favor of vouchers. I'm not in favor of open enrollment now, which Jeff was talking about, because again, that puts the burden on our citizens, our stakeholders. Because if the money's not there from Jeff City, then we're going to have to come up with the money someplace else to support the school districts, and that's going to be our taxpayers, and we don't want that. They don't deserve that. So, thank you.
Very good. Let's give all three candidates a round of applause. And thank them for being here. We have, oh yes, I'm going to collect microphones, yes. So the city council folks are here. Does this sound good? Okay. City council candidates are going to make their way down here.
John, did you get that horn on? I'm not sad.
So John is, yes, by all means, I forgot to pass those out earlier. So John Burke, our timekeeper, is up to the task as he has shown us. He will be vigilant in enforcing the time rules.
He's gonna make sure I don't fall. Well, he's gonna.
Okay, that works. And we have, I'll run through what you'll see on the ballot. Just have a seat wherever you are. Sure, I can give you an order. I can do that. Here it goes. It goes Jerry Taylor on this end,
On one end.
On this end here.
I don't
Jerry
want to be,
Kaler.
I don't want to be on that end.
Well, there was a draw on Jerry and he lost. Then Jeremy, then Kent, third seat over, and then Ron.
Okay.
As they get seated and sort out microphones, I will walk through what you'll see on your ballot in April. We have there are 5 candidates, 4 of whom were able to join us this evening. We have 1 candidate in District 1, that's Jerry Kaler.
That's me.
Right here to my right, he is unopposed for re-election. We have 2 candidates in District 2. They are Brian Cradoff. Mr. Cradoff was unable to be here this evening. He had something come up recently. And then the incumbent is Ken Edmondson. Ken's down here. That's in District 2. And then we have 2 candidates in District 3, both of whom are here this evening. They are Ron Fowler on the end and Jeremy Rowan. And finally, as I mentioned, there's a ballot, but we'll get to that as well. There's the marijuana issue on the ballot. So, I'd like to point out that each candidate, and we will go in this order that we started here. We did have a drawing earlier, so Mr. Kaler will go first. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for his opening statement, and after that, we will have some questions and some answers. Jerry Kaler, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Jerry Kaler, retired city councilman for the last 6 years. This will be my 3rd term, running presently on all by myself. So I got a theme song, all by myself. Anyway, we introduced the hotel motel ordinance back in the first year that we were city council. We also did a security camera ordinance. Ken Edmondson here lately, and I and the council decided on doing a pilot program with cameras in the city, which have been in the last 20 days very successful. I have represented and listened to my constituents in District 1, and your clock is wrong. And we have been successful with listening with them and doing what we think that we should be doing with listening to people. That was the reason I originally ran, was that I wasn't being listened, and there was no voice. And so that is the reason. And again, Jerry Kaler on your ballot, it'd be the only one, District 1. Can I yield my time?
I don't make the rules, Jerry.
I do.
Okay, thank you, there we go. You don't want to cross John, and you really don't want to cross Morris, so. Thank you, Mr. Kaler. Jeremy Rowan, you're up next. 2 minutes, please, to tell us what you're running with.
Only 2 minutes. My name is Jeremy Rowan. Most of you guys know me. I'm a small business owner here in Blue Springs. I'm also a chamber member. First and foremost, though, I am a family man. My smoke-troubled wife right over here is a nurse here in our community. Sorry. We have 2 children. My son, Max, is 14. He attends Moreland Ridge Middle School. And our daughter, wow, just for another couple months, though, right? High school. Anyway, my daughter is 9. She attends Cordell Mason Elementary. Oops, first time. Count 'em. Basically, the reason I decided to run is because I am invested in Blue Springs. I live here. I chose to live here. We moved in, 13 years. Well, I guess when I lived in Autumn Place Apartments, I lived here too. But I bought a house here about 13 years ago. I moved here for the school district, like we were talking about before. I love the school district. I want to raise my children here. Now I'm here in the school district. It is going great, and I want to continue to help build the city up. I put myself on the ballot because I noticed that most of the time the city council, it runs unopposed, like Jerry's unopposed this time. There's not a lot of candidates that want to step up and run for city council. Might I win? I hope so. I'm going up against a gentleman that's been in office for, I don't want to misquote it.
Since '92.
Since 1992, thank you. I didn't want to do that. But I'm here to win, and hopefully I can pick up where he left off. Thank you very much. Jeremy Brown.
Ken Edmondson, please, 2 minutes.
All right, been a resident of Blue Springs for 49 years. Moved out here when I was 11. Can you believe that one? But been on city council for 15 years. I'd like to continue on for at least another 3 years. There's a lot of things that take time to do on the council. That's Ron will attest to that. And Jerry also, it's not something you get done right away. I moved to Blue Springs because of the schools. I bought a business in 1989. I've ran a couple of businesses and just closed the last one down in 2017. And then worked part-time for some employees that were with me for a long time and started their business up. There's a lot of projects that are going on. You know, we have a lot of issues, a lot of other communities do, but it takes somebody that's had some experience and knows how to, look at budgets, knows how to plan ahead, knows how to work with staff. We have an excellent staff here in Blue Springs. It's always nice to have that because probably the same way that the school board works, you try to challenge your staff to come up with new ideas, new projects, new things. It's not necessarily up to me to come up with the answers, but I at least can come up with the challenges, and that's what I think is important about the position. So I do have a candidate that's running against me. I wish he was here because I would like to hear what his ideas are too, just as well as you would. Thank you. And I didn't do the horn of death.
Right. We are so far avoiding the horn of death. And an opening comment from Ron Fowler.
Yeah, hello, my name is Ron Fowler. I want to thank the Examiner, the Chamber, CJC for all working together, coordinating and hosting this. Also acknowledge Mayor Ross is out. He is with Ola, his fiance, and they're getting married today, probably any time. So blessings to them. Hopefully everything goes to all their expectations. I've been doing this a long time. It's also good to see somebody, when I took the oath my first time, was actually serving, Russ Clark. So good to see you here today, and it was an honor serving with you during that time.
We both had more hair than.
Very true, very true. Judy, it's good to see you too, because you were always around as well. So, I have to say that the tenure of service for myself, for most elected officials, is connected to city staff. When city staff does a great job, then you have the opportunity to stay in office, okay? There's plenty of things a council member can do to be taken out of office all by themselves. But honestly, there's no way you can get longevity without a city staff working hard and making you an above average city. So I want to thank them for that and everything that City Hall does. Also, I'm blessed with my children were both born and raised here. Now I have grandchildren born and raised here as well. So my longevity, blessings with the family, and I'm very thankful for all that.
All right, thank you all for your opening remarks. We will now move into the next phase, which is the questions and answers. We'll stick with the same order, but we will change the rotation a little bit. Jerry went first this time. So Jeremy will go first, and then we'll go on down and come back, and Jeremy will be last. And we'll rotate that throughout. I have plenty of questions that have been submitted already, but if there's a question from the floor, please write it down and get it to the end. We can take a look at that as well. We probably won't have time to get to everything, but we'll do the best that we can.
How many passes do I get?
Well, again, that's probably a Laura question. You can phone a friend.
No passes?
Whatever you think you need to do.
First time, sorry.
So each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Audience members, again, if you have questions, please write them down. I've got a lot of questions here. They're all from chamber members, and the first one is really long, but I'm just going to lean into it and do it anyway. It's an important issue in our community, so bear with me. The question may be longer than the answers. Workforce is top of mind for everyone. Let me give you a few statistics. U.S. Chamber of Commerce reports 10 million open jobs, 6 million to fill those jobs. If we look closer to home, Mid-America Regional Council, November of last year, unemployment rate in Blue Springs, 2.4%. The total Blue Springs workforce was 30,985 people in November, but only 742 of those folks were unemployed at that time. This is a huge problem for local businesses. They cannot find enough people to do the work that needs to be done. The question is, what are we doing to attract a workforce that our businesses need? Are there any affordable housing projects or incentives planned? Jeremy Rowan, you're first up with all of that.
Well, I sure don't know if there's anything planned for that. Again, the newbie here. 1 minute, is that right? Okay, thank you, sir. And this is the question, just to be clear, because it was very long. We're asking how to bring a workforce into.
Yeah, it's workforce is a compelling issue for employers. They can't find the people they need. What, if anything, can the city do about it? And what are they doing about it?
To build the workforce. I mean, obviously, one of the ways to have a workforce here in the city would be to have people here in the city that need to fill those jobs. The unemployment rate was 2%, you said?
Like 2.4%. That's in Blue Springs.
So there's 2.4% of our city that's unemployed. So I guess everyone else is completely working and has jobs. I'm gonna have to take a pass on this one. I have to apologize for that. I don't know how we could help. I don't know where the city could help me as a business to bring employees in. Is there, help me here, anybody? No? Okay, thank you very much. 30 seconds.
Fair enough. Ken, it's a meaty question. It's your turn to take a shot at it.
Well, okay, so sympathy from a city standpoint, we're down on employees too. We try to do what we can. We're the 10th largest city in the state, and yet in our last budget, we decreased our police force by 4 people on the budget because we can't get enough people to even staff the police department full. So we've actually reduced the budget and say, okay, there's no way we're going to get 4 more people. So we have talked about with staff. We bounced around the ideas of maybe trying to offer free health care within. You can't win the money game because there's always somebody out there with more money than you have. So the best thing you do is try to convince them of the environment that you have, the quality of the city, and that type of thing. So that's the best way you can go about doing it. Be my advice.
Ron Fowler.
Jeremy, challenging question to start out with. I'm still absorbing the question, I think so.
All right, thank you.
So obviously, benefits for staff is so very important. But let's talk about from the community perspective. We have used incentives over the many years for things like Kohl's, the warehouse, their vet, Haldex. I'm looking at Judy because she remembers all these. Now the Amazon distribution system is where Haldex used to be. Pesco distribution, all those. You get high quality jobs, you're going to need housing to support that. Down south, we've generated lots of jobs with the NID. When you look at the success of that and how many subdivisions have been built since then, it really does keep everybody working. And those are really, invest in your city, invest in your town, get quality jobs.
Jerry Taylor.
Well, that question was asked about 10 minutes ago, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
It was a 9-minute question.
The start of the question was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, here's the issue. Blue Springs is not the only city that is hurting for people to work. We are not just by ourselves with that. The state, MoDOT, we've been harping on 7 Highway for 2.5 years. And no, I got 30 seconds more than that. And we still have not got it because their excuse is we don't have enough people. Well, when you don't have the people to fill the jobs, it's more than just our little nutshell here in Blue Springs. It's over the state. It's over the United States. And as far as housing goes, housing has just gone ridiculous when you have a house that was, 1 week was $247,000. We go look at it, and it ended up being $425,000. How in the world is one supposed to even afford it? I had 20 extra seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was close.
Close, you almost got it in. This question goes first to Kent Edmondson. Some people think that opening a business in Blue Springs is challenging. Do you agree with that or disagree? And what, if anything, needs to be done to change that opinion?
Having opening businesses, yes, it's challenging. There's a lot of challenges there with financing, finding a location, working with the city to get proper permits if you have to do building. Finding employment, as the original question asked. There's all sorts of challenges, not just necessarily the city. A lot of that is, to me, if you're opening a business, the best bet is to try to find somebody, a chamber, somebody that can give you some answers to questions and help you guide to get into that position of getting that business open. Go find someone that has that similar business in another town and ask them what they went through. As a city, we try to simplify it, put things online where you can go online and find those, but that's assuming you know the right question to ask, which is difficult because sometimes you don't know that. We try to streamline procedures in the city, like permitting processes, some of those that can be done, but there's always room for improvement. And I'll stop.
Ron Powell.
Yes, starting a small business is challenging in any city. I grew up in a family that went through a number of small businesses over the years, very challenging. I respect anybody that does it. There's a lot of work. What can the city do to help those folks out? Well, obviously, partnering with the chamber is an important aspect of that. Listening to the chamber, listening to people that come and apply to see how we can help them. Continue to listen. If we need to change our ordinances to streamline our policies, then that's the key thing. So bring those concerns to us, and let's see what we can get done.
Jay Kaler, is it too hard to open business in this town?
Depends on who you talk to. The issue we had 5-6 years ago was it was hard to even start a business in here because of the process. We have since changed our process to where it's a lot easier to do business and construction work here in the city. We streamlined a lot of things. What you're having issues with is when you do those and you go to apply for a permit and you do, and I'm going to go that route of it because that's what I heard most of. You go do a permit and it takes so long to do it. Well, I will say that it's not just Blue Springs that's been like that. Blue Springs has improved, but we have got not only to change the attitude with people around since we have improved, because there's still architects downtown that won't even look at Blue Springs, a building, and bringing stuff to Blue Springs because of that.
And the business question finally, Jeremy Rowan.
Yes, starting up a business in Blue Springs is hard. And starting it, holy cow, almost 20 years ago was even harder. I had no guidance. I had nothing. I fumbled my way through it. Ironically enough, similar to what I'm doing today. But it is hard. I have to convince people to fund me. I have to go to a bank. I have to get this loan. And then I have to find a quality place to put my location, right? Or put my business. I got to find a good location. And unfortunately in Blue Springs, I looked high and low. I looked at literally every building. We tried to go in on Main Street. I ended up on South 7 Highway. Not my first pick, but it was a good, solid spot. I don't have a lot of stuff. I didn't need a lot of build out. I just need a big open room. But it was still hard for me to do. And I'm sure it's a lot harder for a lot more complicated businesses than a martial arts dojo. So.
This question will kick off first with Ron Fowler and then come back to the top of the lineup here with Jerry after that. Question first to Mr. Fowler is this: as a candidate for local office, how do you manage influence from state or national parties and/or from special interest groups?
Continue to stay nonpartisan. I got a cold call the other day asking me, where I stood, and I just had to let them know that hey, we are a nonpartisan city and intending to stay that way. If I lean one way, it's more conservative. I have conservative values and I'm fiscal conservative more than anything. but I do respect the boundary, and I don't try and make that. Plus, the city issues are not really partisan. We're talking about police, streets, and parks, okay? There is not a lot of opportunity to have the kind of disputes that they do at the state and national level. So just say no to partisan politics. I think that's better for our community.
Jerry Kaler.
I will agree. The thing is, you don't want to be one side or the other because it doesn't really make any difference. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, this or that or whatever. You still want 7 Highway to look best. You still want infrastructure. You still need a quality of roads to be able to drive down instead of a potholeville. But again, Blue Springs is not the only city that is dealing with any of this stuff. I mean, some of the responsibility lies back at the representatives that hold, they've got a surplus and they won't even consider the municipalities. And that's an issue because the municipalities are the ones that are helping the state side in. But it doesn't matter what you are, left, right, in the middle or whatever, you still got certain needs that need to be taken care of, and we're wanting to take care of the needs, and that's what we're trying to, that's the reason we go to Jeff City. We've been, Susan and I, Ron, Kent, we all been in Jeff City several times fighting, and in legislation meetings every monthly. Jim Beamer, you know that, and we argue with that, so thank you.
Very good.
Jeremy,
Rowan,
I still had 10 seconds.
you have to sign up for 10 seconds. No, Mr. Rowan.
I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, gladly. As a candidate for local office, how do you manage influence from state or national parties and/or from special interest groups?
As far as getting into this office and how city council works, again, it's a nonpartisan thing like we've discussed. It's about parks, it's about streets, it's about the businesses here, it's about helping the people in the community. My political values, whatever my religious values are, that doesn't matter. It's what the people need, and that's what we're all here to do. These gentlemen have been doing it for a little while. I would like to jump in with them and do the same thing.
And Ken Edmondson, I don't want to take your time.
No,
Mr. Rowan,
you done?
I'm done. Yeah, it was quick and easy. I already knew that.
Well, obviously the fact is that I work for you. Each one of you out there, I work for you. You voted me in. You put me in that position. I work for the staff, the city staff. Because those people live here, I try to do what I can to help them. I'm here to provide 3 things that I think a city is basically responsible for you. That's infrastructure, which is roads and water. You've got... God, what's the 3? I lost the 1. Anyway, Parks and Rec, that you do your quality of life. That's the other one. And then you got safety, public safety, fire, police. And then that's the core. And if you're staying with the core, you don't have time to figure out right or left or who's doing what.
Okay, very good. We're keeping with our same order. We're back to the top of the lineup. So this question goes first to Jerry Kaler, and then we'll just go right down the row. The question is pretty straightforward. How do you envision our city in the next 5 or 10 years?
I've said this once, I've said it 100 times. I would like to see our city, as far as the city itself, go back to the popularity of the 80s. I'm tired of being the 90s city of the Royals. In other words, we get good quality stuff and things go otherwise. I believe that we're on a track now. We got a new city administrator. We've got a brilliant staff. That is just working great, and we are seeing things move along in a positive area now, where the future is looking really good. And you see businesses coming in, and we're out fishing for the businesses to come more. And I look in 5 years, looking that Blue Springs is going to be right back on the top again.
Jeremy Rowan?
This is really taken from my closing statement, so I have nothing left to say at the end. But again, just to get this in my head, one more time on the question.
Sure. It's how do you envision our city in the next 5 to 10 years?
Obviously, I'd love to see the city grow, but not just grow exponentially. I want to see it grow, keep that small town charm that we have. There, like he said, the Blue Springs of the 80s. I honestly kind of like the 90s too, but I'd like to see more small businesses coming here. I'd like to see us support them, build them, and just make, that's really what kind of this city is all about. Kohl's is awesome, Amazon is awesome, and it's going to help bring revenue into the city, but those small businesses, again, the heart of the city, and what we need to focus on. I'd like to see more of that, which is going to bring more residents, it's going to bring more revenue, and it's going to make the city a lot stronger.
Ken Evans.
5 to 10 years, I see us landlocked. I see us to the point that we built out all our lots. We've kidded around, I should say, about annexing Green Valley in and all that land out that way, so for growth. But I see we'll still have the same issues we have now. We're going to have problems with roads. Hopefully our parks are going to be better. We've done some things in putting tax in place to where we can keep that maintenance up. There'll probably be still a lack of employees, quality employees, and hiring new employees. We'll still have a great school district that'll draw people out here, but it's going to be harder for them to find resident or housing. I think we'll have a growth of, again, more apartment complexes to put those type people into. I would like to see to make sure that we try to make that quality growth in that area. But that's what I see. The same thing we have now, only getting larger, bigger, but the same problems we have, hopefully we keep them small.
Yeah, ditto to everything Kent just mentioned. Plus, short term, yeah, we're going to get that new water park about a year from now. That's great. We're going to see over the next few years the fruition of that parks tax really come to play. We'll have all that going for us. One of the things that I challenged during the interview with our city administrators was to think about another intersection with I-70. I know Russ was here when we did the Parkway, and you could look at what's happened to Blue Springs over the past 30 years with Kohl's, Forcia, PepsiCo Distribution, Amazon. There needs to be another intersection with I-70 to move all that truck traffic in and out. And I can tell you, Green Valley would absolutely love it because they would be part of that economic development as well. So love to see that happen. That's an awful lot of said right there, but I know our city administrator can get it going.
So this next question goes first to Jeremy. Rowan, kind of the same idea, but a little different take from this is also from the floor. Or from a chamber member, what is the most important issue facing the city of Blue Springs right now? And what needs to be done to address that?
Most important. One of the things that I didn't bring up, I got stuck on small business for a minute there, but is our safety. I do happen to know that our police force is struggling to get employees. And they discussed a couple of ways that we could hopefully incentivize that and bring more employees into Blue Springs. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you are employed by the city of Blue Springs as a police officer, you are trained by the police, is that correct? And then you have to serve 3 years on that training, and then you are free to go after that. Yeah. We need to find a way to stop that from happening, right? We're basically training people for other police forces, which is unfortunate because that's where they're going to go. They're going to go where the benefits are, where the money is. If we have a safe city, we'll bring more business and more residents, and I think that's one of the more pressing issues.
Ken Edmondson, the most important issue.
It's kind of like your family. You have a limited amount of income coming in, and you have to try to do what you can with that money. Raise your kids, housing, make sure you have a proper car. The city does the same thing. We have a limited amount of income coming in. A lot of that income is based out of sales tax. So the more we can expand our business, whether it be small, big, that helps our tax base. That helps both the school district and us. You can also get it from jobs, trying to bring more jobs into town and do that way. We really have a good group of staff that works for you, and by that I mean not only administrative, but public works, parks, all those people. They work really hard to try to provide a service to you. So the main thing is trying to manage all that. And then from a school or from our position as a council is to try to provide some guidance where we want to be in the future and how to get there.
Ron Fowler.
Thank you. I'm gonna steal a page from Councilmember Culpepper last year. I'm gonna get right out of the survey. The residents feel the most emphasis from city leaders over the next 2 years. Number one, the overall maintenance of city streets and sidewalks. Number two, the quality of police services and protection. And number three, the effectiveness of community planning. Going back to that first one, streets and sidewalks, it is definitely a priority. I think anybody on council knows that, and our city staff as well. We have raised that as a flag. We don't exactly have all the tough budget decisions made, but that is the goal, to get us back, get some fresh asphalt out there, do something with Wyatt Road, do the reconstruction there, and continue to try and get ahead of this problem. We're a little bit behind right now.
Jerry Caleb.
Well, the reason we're behind is because we get cold and it gets warm, it gets cold, it gets warm, and then my allergies screw up.
There you go.
But I think one of the things is, like I mentioned, the 90s Royals, and if you remember the 90 Royals, we had all those good players. We were nothing but a farm club for New York and everybody else. Well, it happened right here in Blue Springs in the 80s and the 90s. We were nothing but a farm club, and all the good employees that we had farmed out and went somewhere else. I think our number one problem that we need to work on is retaining our employees and getting employees to work on the work service. Now, does it make it any less? No. Potholes, streets are still number one, but you got to have somebody, because I'm not going to go out there. I'll just be honest with you right now. I'm not going out and filling no potholes, okay? My knee won't let me do it right now, so I'm not going to do it. So, in my time left, 10 seconds.
Thank you for that. So this question goes first to Ken Edmondson. I want to pick up on what a couple of the candidates were talking about on the streets, because we do have a specific question from the floor about that. And the question goes like this: when will the city of Blue Springs update our infrastructure? Our streets need more than sloppy pothole patches. How can our city council help with our streets? Mr. Edmondson.
So we can and we will and we are. This last budget, we increased our overlay program, which was sitting at $2 million. We increased that up to $4.6 million, wasn't it, I believe? Dollars going towards that. The problem we do is, as we expand, sometimes we have to come back and take a whole road and bring it from a county road up to a current road. That takes time. The other thing we can look at is, can we get grant money? Can we go out and get funding from the government, from the federal government, and mutual things through Mid-America Regionals Council? We're working on that, trying to get funding to help at least do 80%, and we do 20 or a match type deal. So we work for those opportunities to take and use that. I just had a quick conversation with a councilman from Overland Park, and they do nothing but chip seal everything. And that's not what we do. We try to make quality so that improvement will last.
Yep. Good question, good response there. I guess we have, the city, on another priority, has bitten off a lot in the last couple of years, okay? It was a collective decision made by the city council. There was an awful lot of discussion, an awful lot of tough debates over it. But we have made that a priority and spent millions of dollars on it, okay? You can go back and look at our comprehensive annual financial report and see where the money is going to recently. But that doesn't mean that we all don't identify with this is an issue, and the money is there. We're going to get it and keep it focused. We've got a new public works director, and it's a big challenge for them to continue to get ahead of this problem.
Joe Taylor.
I didn't get to answer.
I didn't either.
You didn't? This one? Did you go first?
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken.
Okay, yeah.
It's all
I
good.
messed up the.
It's all good.
I'll go.
Everybody's good.
All right.
I thought you
Because everyone wants to hear about streets.
Streets. Yes, there was $4.6 million added. And at the time that the $4.6 million was added to the streets, we all thought we were going to get 3 times, 4 times more of street repair done because of the increase. But what happened? Just like houses and everything else went, it went up. Asphalt price went up almost 3 times the amount we did the previous year. And that makes it a little hard to, luckily we increased it 4.7, or we'd be really hurting if we hadn't increased it, but streets, yeah.
Mr. Rowan, what should the council be doing?
Here. Oh. Elect me and we'll get it fixed. No. Sorry, I had to go for it. It was just the easy win. Well, you know, when you get one. Coming up on the ballot, there's the marijuana tax. It's 3% tax on marijuana sales. Sorry, recreational marijuana sales to be exact. Do we have something earmarked for that at this point? Is there anything?
General fund.
General fund. So we could use that for roads. Okay. Just fun fact, I looked this up yesterday. The state of Missouri. Now, again, this isn't for Blue Springs or the facilities here in the city, but the state of Missouri racked in $4.5 million. Oh, I think that's the number. I was trying to double check first. Just in March, and if we took 3% of that, that'd be a pretty good amount of money that we could put towards streets to maybe help boost the police, just other things. Anyway, that's fine.
So this question, and we're going to follow up on that because this is another question from the floor. This starts with Mr. Fowler. If the 3% tax on recreational marijuana is approved in a couple of weeks, where will the money go?
So we have designated that as a council to the general fund. Can the general fund be used for roads? Absolutely. And I can see that, I know there's some preferences that some council members had to just directly make it go towards roads. But over time, we will, we'll see where it goes to, but it's all going to the general fund right now. You know, I think I should also say, when I talk about big expectations about putting another intersection in with I-70, the city didn't do that all by ourselves. We had Mark, Mid-America Regional Council, who funded, who we got a lot of money from. The administration at that time and Mayor Grounds went there and got millions of dollars assigned to our city from that collective money. So there is money out there. We have to work and lobby to get it. Okay, it's not going to be easy, but that's another resource to go help fix this problem.
Jerry Kaler, money from the marijuana tax.
I was all for putting it in the general fund. Number one, we don't know exactly what and how much we're going to get. So we use the first year to exactly see how much the revenue is going to get. By putting it in the general fund, you can put it any use that we need to put it in. If I have a major water main break and we've got a 12-inch main that's busted in, we needed to fix it, we could actually use that money coming out of that. I was not willing to focus it and put it straight into the streets. I'll just be honest, I was in for the internet tax because they're the ones that tore the streets up. But nevertheless, the marijuana goes in the general fund, and that way we have an avenue to use it basically for any kind of emergency we needed to use to have it there. And I'm anxious to see what kind of revenues it will bring.
Jeremy Rowan, where would you want that money to go?
And again, talking to people everywhere, streets are the main priority. I would love to put those in the streets. I talked earlier about the police force needing extra funding, hopefully to fix that, to bring hopefully new candidates into our city. Sorry, I was passing the mic. I got lost there. But there's a ton of places it could go. And I think it's hard for voters to vote in a tax where it goes to a general fund. And I get there's probably a reason why it goes there, but it'd be nice or as a voter, that's maybe on the edge if they don't want to vote in this marijuana tax, because we do have to get it voted in before we can even place it anywhere. If it was for something, hopefully it would work. Again, the internet tax for the roads, I was all for that, and obviously the rest of the city was not. But that would have helped with those roads.
Ken Edmondson, your turn on marijuana money.
Okay. So the estimate is that somewhere around possibly 200 to 300,000 revenue off of that is our part at 3%. It could go up, it could go down, it depends. As Ron said, we discussed that. I did speak out against putting it to roads, and the reason why is that we just increased roads up to $4.6 million. It's a big increase from where it was from $2 million. But I'd like to be able to see to have that money to maybe look at hiring people to help fix those potholes. We're short-staffed. Make sure we have the employees to do that. Hire some more officers. Use some of that money maybe as incentive. let staff look at that money first before we make that decision and say, it just needs to go to roads. Let staff come forward and say, well, we could use that extra $200,000-300,000 for maybe some bonuses to get some people on work. I mean, there's some creative things. Maybe we can use that with, why throw that away and go directly into roads?
Okay, very good. We're back to Mr. Kaler leading off, and we'll go down. We're going to have time for one or maybe two more questions. We're making pretty good time here. This one is from a council member, or I'm sorry, a chamber member, a question from the floor, as it were, and it's kind of a philosophical question, but it does affect how the job of city government gets done. It's this: as a current or future city council member, how have you or how will you weigh the views and opinions of constituents against your own views and opinions and experiences? And what if community opinion does not align with your views? How does it affect your decisions? How do you sort those things out? Jared Kaler.
Number one, I work for District 1. They're the ones that put me there, and I listen to them and represent District 1. There was going to be a car wash at 7 and I-70. I didn't personally see anything wrong with the 7 and I-70 car wash, but I had constituents that really balked at the idea of having a car wash. I listen to my constituents. I represent them. They're the ones that put me in. They are my boss, and so I listen to whether I like the idea or not. It goes to the people in District 1.
Jeremy Rowan.
Well, I had this in my head. I don't know if I said it earlier, so sorry if I repeat myself. If you've heard this before, I believe that, again, my politics, my religion, that doesn't necessarily matter when I'm representing the city. The people of the city, I should say. I'm new to this. I'm willing to take any type of advice. I've talked to all these gentlemen, so I'm going to get out there and I'm going to talk to the people. I'm going to see what they want to have done, and that's what I'm going to try to do. Like they mentioned before, it is the citizens first, and then we work for them, and then on up the board as the state works for us. Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully those people voted me in because of what they saw me do or how I acted and what I did. I'm responsible to them. They have the ultimate knife, so to speak, that they can cut me off anytime they want. But I do listen to what the constituents say. I try to provide them what they're asking for based on what facilities we have and what income we have and that type of thing. We're as close as you can get to your neighbor compared to, say, a state councilman or a state rep or somebody like that. So it gets personal with us. It's personal. So when you call and say you're having problems with it, we listen to that. Then we pass that along to staff. We pass that along to committees for them to review. That's made up of your neighbors, your people live next door to you. They listen to that, and then we come from that and try to make an ordinance that's good for the whole city as a whole.
Yeah, all good points. I think that one of the number one things that elected officials, we also get trained on this by city attorneys, et cetera, and that is don't make any decision until you can have listened and heard all the evidence, and that means holding off how you're going to vote until it's time to vote. Continue to listen, because there is great debate on both sides of issues. The longer you listen, the more you're going to see both sides of it. You're going to weigh the trade-offs. Things you may not have thought from can come from all different people and areas of life. So don't make a decision too early. Keep it open and listen.
I think we've got time for one more question before closing statements, and we'll go first to Jeremy Rowan. This question is directed to District 3, but I'm going to throw it to all four candidates because it's going to affect everybody who's up there on the council. The question is this: in District 3, there is a lack of commercial and business development. What types of businesses would you like to see in this district, and how can the city work with the EDC director to bring more businesses specifically to that part of the town?
I think I said it before, I'd like to bring more small business, more local business, more things that are unique to the city. That's what's going to bring people from Lee Summit, from Independence, from Grain Valley to come and spend money here in our city. Everybody has a Kohl's, everybody has a Whataburger, unfortunately. So they're not coming for those unique experiences that we can offer here. They're coming for an East 40 brewery. They're coming for a Bliss chocolatier. And I'd like to see some more things like that. Obviously, living on the south side of town, I'd like to see those things because it'd be right outside of my door, and then I can do those things as well. And I'd just like to work with the city to try to build more down that south side.
Ken Evanson, District 3.
Well, District 3, I'm District 2, we're in the heart of the city, and God's country, may I say. But it's an inside joke. But anyway, we as a council gave direction to staff to hire in a company to come in and assist our economic development. We have a new economic development director. They come in, and this company does nothing but survey. They come out, look at what is available as far as empty spaces, which is true. There's a lot of empty space down south because that's where our growth is. And then they go out and they come back with a slate of people that are looking for our size city with these number of houses, these number of populations, that have some businesses that they know are successful in the nation, and they will try to attract them here. At the same time, having a lot of those empty spaces provides open space for a business like Jeremy. When he went out and looked, if we're all full and don't have any spaces, where are anybody going to go? So sometimes you need to have those vacancies to be able to fill.
Yeah, there is a lot of land along 7 Highway for development of commercial and retail. I think before we ever put the NID in, the number one advice we got was rooftops. And when you have the rooftops, they will ultimately come. Right now, I think we're in that position where we got a lot of rooftops down there, but I have also heard the land prices are pretty steep too. And there's just got to be that balance of people willing to pay the money to the landowners and take those risks. Will the city be willing to use incentives? I certainly have in the past, and certainly would consider it. I prefer high quality jobs to use incentives first, but we will look at the situation. We've incentivized Hy-Vee, Price Chopper, to keep them in our city.
Jerry Kaler, you're on the north side of the city. What's your take on this?
Well, unlike certain people in the heart of the city in District 2, we are God's country in District 1. And that is the inside joke between the two of us. There has been different developments that were going to go in down in District 3. There was going to be a grocery store. There was going to be a hardware store. And all those got yanked out from underneath. Now, one of the reasons it got yanked out from underneath is the prices of quality materials and things going up. And again, as Kent was saying, the land prices, and Ron, I think you agree that the land prices have gone up tremendously down in that part. The grocery store, I'm not even going to get into why that didn't go, but most of us know why that didn't happen. But there has been look at going down south with a lot of, and I'm like Ron. I'm not opposed to not give incentives, but I was told to stop.
Well, there we go. I was going to say the candidates have done an exemplary job of avoiding the bicycle bell, but I assure you the able Mr. Burke is still eager to jump in there as we move. There we go. As we move into closing statements, which will be a minute each for your closing thoughts. Mr. Edmondson, you are up first. 1 minute on your closing thoughts.
Well, this is a challenging job. I'm not sure why anybody would take the job, but I applaud anyone that does step up and want to do it. I wish a candidate in my district would have been here. I'd love to hear what his comments were on that. I've got 15 years in this position. Prior to this, I served on the school board. I've been president of the Chamber of Commerce, president of the Rotary Club. I do a lot of volunteering still. I have a pretty broad base to pull from. So hopefully that gives me some well-roundedness and maybe some common sense. As Ron said, you have to listen to both sides. You just can't come at something and say there's one-sided. It's never one-sided. There's always two sides to every story. So I think I do a really good job of that in this position, and I'd like to at least keep it.
Ron Fowler, a minute for your closing thoughts.
Thank you. For everybody coming today, thank you for your time. To the candidates up here with me, y'all did a great job, Jeremy. A lot of tough questions for a new person up here. So I can't get I've got to talk about that county assessor's deal of 30% increase. I think that was excessive. I think state needs to come in and do something with that. When land prices went down by 30%, we didn't get a 30% reduction in our taxes. But I also, and the reason I highlight, I don't normally talk about this, but if we look at our tax levy for the city of Blue Springs, down to 63.66 cents, that's 15% lower than it was 10 years ago in 2013. I highlight that as a city council that we continue to improve the efficiency of government, to do more with less. We are very sensitive to anything talking about a 30% assessment increase. I'd love for our community as a whole to get with Jeff City and get something done. Thank you for your time.
Jerry Kaler, a minute for your closing thoughts.
Ditto, Ron Fowler. I want to first say thank you to the fire department. Chief, appreciate you opening the doors to us. Examiner, Jeff, Mike, appreciate you guys being here. And again, to all the chamber members and those that are not chamber members that are here. Staff, appreciate you guys showing up to these and putting up with us, as we say. I'm looking forward to another 3 years, and I agree with Kent. I don't know why anybody would do this. It's not that easy of a job, but what I enjoy doing is helping my constituents and doing the best I can to help get them through an issue or a problem. And I don't mind being that go-between to see if we can't get a solution taken care of. To the school board, I didn't want to lose you guys either. I'm sorry. I appreciate you guys being there too today. All these fine gentlemen up here, hang in there.
It finally happened. Pressure's off with the bell. Jeremy Rowland, I'll give you 1 minute for your closing thoughts.
Wow. Well, I thought I wanted to do this job, but now I'm not sure. And honestly, this is the hardest I've worked for a part-time job in my life. With all the tax raises, I mean, I need that extra $500 a month, please. So please vote for me so I can get that. Is it still $500 a month? Is that what the pay is?
37 cents an hour.
Okay, perfect. I need that so I can help. Okay.
Almost 37.
Well, almost. It's probably more than I've made in some jobs. Anyway, the point is basically I decided to run. I wanted to make some change. I want to be something fresh and new. I think that this is an amazing city, and I think that I can help move it forward. I understand it's going to be a hard job, and it's been a hard job up to this point to try to get this job, and I'm going to continue to work hard when I do get it. Thank you.
Let's have a round of applause for our candidates. Thank you all for coming today. And as they make their way off the stage, we'll move into the final portion of this evening's forum. We have one more thing to discuss. I didn't get out the book. I just said leave. That's all. Yeah. There is one more thing to discuss this evening. On April 4th, Blue Springs residents will vote on whether to add a 3% tax on the purchase of recreational marijuana. And from the city of Blue Springs, we have City Administrator Mike Hickey, and he is here to provide more information. I don't know if you want to sit down like that little show or talk from here. You do whatever you want. Come on down here. Thank you. Fantastic. Are we going to do a question and answer, or are you just going to go?
Well, I'll start.
Throw a question. If I live in Blue Springs, Missouri, why do I want to vote for this?
Well, a couple of reasons. First and foremost, just as a little bit of kind of history. So back in November, voters across the state approved the state's constitutional amendment to legalize and allow for recreational marijuana. As part of that constitutional amendment, there was a provision in there that allows local governments, City Hall, your city, to add an additional 3% sales tax on the sale of the recreational marijuana. In the city of Blue Springs, we currently have two dispensaries that are allowed to sell recreational marijuana. Based on the sales that they have had in the last couple of years, we've been able to estimate that just based on their medical sales, if passed, an additional 3% would bring in roughly $250,000 to $300,000 a year, as the council members have mentioned, to the general fund that could be allocated towards a number of those priorities that you've already heard about this evening. As to the why, number of reasons that we could go into, and without kind of even getting into the weeds, just this past year we had a use tax in front of voters. As part of the our proposed use tax, one of the things that was happening at the state level was for us to even ask residents to approve a use tax on out-of-state online purchases. The state started reducing the amount of funds or revenue that we could collect on right-of-way permits or through our franchise fees. So every time a cable company comes through your front yard and digs it up to bury a new cable, every time AT&T comes through and digs up one of the street corners, we're no longer allowed, or they're going to be reducing over the next few years, the amount of revenue that we're able to collect in order to make the repairs and ensure that those right-of-ways continue to look nice, that they continue to function, that they're safe. That was one thing that the state of Missouri essentially gave to us as a city to deal with. And so one of the reasons that we're looking at this 3% and asking voters to approve it is because we do need to make up the difference in some of those cuts that the state is inflicting on us. This is one way, and again, as the council members council candidates have already mentioned in their speeches, there are a lot of priorities, roads being one of them, one of the top priorities we hear about from residents over and over again, but there are a number of other priorities that as costs continue to go up, as we continue to grow as a community, it's important that we're able to keep the type of high quality services that we provide to our residents in place and can continue to provide those.
Very good, and I know that the way the money gets spent is the job of the council, and they're your bosses, so you can only speak to that so much, and you can't endorse this, you can just give information, so I think, unless you've got anything else, we can wrap this piece up.
The only thing that I did want to mention, and I absolutely hate to correct the newspaper man.
So the first time.
There's actually going to be 4 things on the ballot that you're going to see when you go into the voting booth, along with the school district, the city council, as well as the city item. Jackson County has also decided to put a 3% sales tax on the ballot as well. Originally, when the county legislature placed this on the ballot for an additional 3%, the Department of Revenue came out with a clarification saying they couldn't, quote unquote, stack the tax. So the city could collect its 3%, the county, if approved, could collect its 3% in the unincorporated areas of the county. Unfortunately, we have a county on the St. Louis side that has since filed a lawsuit suing the state to reverse that Department of Revenue order to allow them to collect an additional 3% on in-city, so our dispensaries, to effectively make that sales tax a 6%. It's the city's position that they shouldn't be allowed to stack that sales tax, that it should remain, as the Department of Revenue had originally said, 3% within the city limits, 3% out in the unincorporated areas. Unfortunately, that's kind of in the court's hands right now, so we'll have to wait and see. But it's one of those things that I think is important to mention and talk about so that it's not a surprise as voters are going to the ballot and they see both the city sales tax question as well as the county sales tax question.
It is an important clarification, and I thank you for that, because we really are looking at the potential for 6%, half the city and half the county.
Jeff, if I may?
Yeah.
Sorry. There are cards that talk a little bit more about this that are out there on the table. It'll talk about the 3 of the things that these funds could go to. And I, as a city councilman, am endorsing this. I know the city cannot, I can. So I want to make sure that you're all aware of what's going on. I'm not endorsing the county, that's between you and the county, but I am endorsing it for the city because it can make a big difference.
I think we do have a second for another question.
So I have a question in regards to that. I heard something on TV the other day that most of the cities seem to be going to do that. And so, if your city votes against it, that, whether people are going to transfer from one line to the other line, but how much revenue you may lose. So I think it might be wise, if you're concerned, to know what all the other surrounding communities are doing as well. I think there's a lot of information that we don't seem to have a good way to get to our constituents anymore. I mean, I find I don't, if Tim hadn't called me and told me this was going on, I had no idea. That's a real concern to me that we don't get information.
Mike, are you running into lots of questions along these lines?
In terms of the, so.
A bit of confusion out there as to Independence is doing this, Blue Springs is doing this, Lee Summit is doing this, County's doing this, what does this all look like?
Right, so really there are only about 2 or 3 cities in the metropolitan area that aren't placing this on the ballot, on the April ballot. I believe that by last count of the Missouri Municipal League, there's roughly about 200 cities across the state, everyone from some of the bigger cities, both on the Missouri or the Kansas City, the St. Louis side, as well as some of the smaller cities and jurisdictions that are also placing this on a ballot going forward in April. And so I know we are not alone in terms of our residents seeing this on April 4th.
Very good. Anything else, Mike?
That'll do
All
it.
right, very good. Thank you. That is the time that we have for today's forum, and in closing, we'd like to thank all of the candidates and Mr. Hickey for taking his time to be here this afternoon and participate in today's forum. I'd like to thank Blue Springs Chamber of Commerce for they're the driving force in this thing, and they need to be recognized for that. This has been a lively exchange of thoughts and ideas, coupled with dialogue among candidates, and I think it's fair to say it's a rewarding and enlightening experience every time we do it, every March. I want to again thank CJC for their hospitality and each of you for coming out and being part of this important and this worthwhile process. And finally, the Blue Springs Chamber and the Examiner encourage you to exercise your right, your privilege, to vote in the April 4th election. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thanks for and I apologize I didn't think. No, you're good.
So that, good point.
It's like going up against Nolan Ryan.
Right, well, the first
Ever.
pitch, yeah, that's what.